All right, so back in May of 2015, I had written an article about why you should vote for Bernie. It was a three-part article. At the time, his website had listed income inequality, getting big money out of politics, and climate change in the environment as the three major things that might differentiate himself from the other candidates as probably the most important things he wanted to address in his presidency, and probably the most important thing to progressive voters. So I had written a three-part series, one for each topic, and today I'm going to go back over those and turn it into a video. So this first part is about income inequality. Starting in the latter half of the 1970s, income had begun to stagnate as the unions started to be destroyed starting in the 70s and were really destroyed in the 80s, during the Reagan era. And trickle down economics, coming into play, valuing that over valuing the workers. So, what we see in graphs is productivity continuing to go up throughout the last 40 years, but we see wages stagnate. They go like this. So, wages, productivity. And the reason why that happens, of course, is that the unions were being destroyed, and unions have a umbrella effect. So only like 30 or 40% of an industry has to be unionized in order for the entire union to experience a higher wage. So, for instance, if you own a factory and you are a unionized factory, you're paying $15 per hour for your employees or whatever, and the other factory that's paying $7 an hour for their employees is going to have really unskilled labor. So, in order to attract just as good as employees as you're attracting, even if they aren't unionized, they're going to be paying competitive wages to what you're paying. So it's an umbrella effect across the entire nation. This is how the middle class grows. We know this because when millions of people have money in their hands, they're going to spend it a lot better than if one guy has millions of dollars in his hands. So, for instance, what we would see is food, clothing, a lot more basic necessities are all being purchased whenever it's in the hands of millions of people. But when it's in the hands of one guy, he might decide to go buy a golden iWatch or some stupid shit like that. And that, of course, is not as wise as millions of people, because millions of people is a collective effort of people who are buying things. So, two heads are better than one. Well, millions of heads are better than one head, right? If one guy decides he wants to go buy an all gold, I don't know, Armani suit or something, then that's in theory, in capitalist theory, that is not as good a decision as millions of people deciding to go buy something else. So this is also affecting that because you're having more and more money coming out of the pockets of the middle class and going into the pockets of the rich because productivity is going up, wages are stagnating. 70s, early 80s, women start entering the workforce a lot faster. Their households need them extra income now. Whenever the man isn't going to a factory and making $20 an hour anymore, the unions are being destroyed, then the women have to step up and start working as well. So this really, it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely bad the reason why it happened, which is that people are making less money in their households. Then into the 90s, we start seeing a lot of debt start going up more and more. People are using the debt at their disposal. They're using home equity line of credits and credit cards and whatever else. So they're making up for this flat stagnation, this flat wage, by using up their debt. So now you have the women in the workforce using up more debt. So the answer to income inequality in part is reunionizing the workforce just by 30 or 40%. And we'll see a massive umbrella that'll cover everything. And in the past it was factories, now it's fast food. We're a post-industrialized country now, unfortunately. So we're going to start seeing our economy change. We're going to see machines taking over more and more, and there's going to have to be an answer to that. And this is part of the answer, is unionizing and taking care of the poor. So we start going into how he's going to make college free, and you can find all this on his website, of course. Basically, the idea is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer if the poor can't even get education. If you go to a public school in the inner city, you don't have the same chance as a rich kid who has gone to a private school his entire life and is going to go to Harvard and go become the CEO of whatever company. All right. You just don't have the same opportunities. You don't even have the chance to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. So then the next thing we're going to be seeing is raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This is going into what I was saying earlier about making sure that there's more money in the hands of the middle class. I mean, we really wouldn't even need to raise the minimum wage if we just, got more unions back, because of that umbrella effect again. But we would be joining the ranks of countries like the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Switzerland. The next thing that he would do that is definitely different from everyone else is breaking up the big banks, really good antitrust laws. He's not going to be pushing for trade deals. Barack Obama told us no trade deals. Next thing we know, he's pushing through trade deals. Not going to be any trade deals. No NAFTA. Bernie's progressive tax system. So he would essentially raise taxes on the wealthy, and lowering taxes on the not so wealthy. So the way the progressive tax system works, we already technically have a progressive tax system, but Bernie's saying it's not high enough. So say on the first $300,000 that you make, you get taxed 10%. Okay? That means everyone in the entire United States gets taxed 10% on the first $300,000 that they make. Then, let's say for the next, $300,001 all the way up to $1 million that you make, you get taxed, 20%, and so on and so forth. That's a progressive tax system. Bernie's saying that he would raise it to as much as perhaps 50% on the top tax tier, and so that's how that works is you're not getting taxed 50% on your entire amount that you make. You're getting taxed 50% on that one part. You're getting taxed 10% on the first part, and then so on and so forth, or whatever, he decides to tax it to be. For the record, this is not as bad as it sounds. America has had a progressive tax system for a very long time. We go back, just 50 years, 60 years ago. The highest it was at one point was 94%, 93%, something like that. 90 something percent on the top tier of the tax system, on the top bracket of the tax system. That's insane to think about. He just wants 50%. It's way lower than it has been in the past. He's not really saying anything radical. He's saying just bring it back to the way that it was in the 50s and the 60s, whenever we were creating wealth for our country, back whenever we were taxing people more, and we had unions in this country, and we had, this idea that you could pull yourself up by the bootstraps if it was fair, if things made sense, if you had the education available to you that other people had available to them. One of the last parts that I want to go into about income inequality is, talking about the corporate-owned Democrats, the Democrats who belong to the system. One thing, Bernie said that he would reinstate Glass-Steagall. Hillary Clinton said she wouldn't reinstate Glass-Steagall, even though her husband repealed it, or really killed it for good, and he said that it was going to be a mistake. He said it was a mistake, and even though she's admitted that it was a mistake to repeal it, she's not going to reinstate it. That doesn't make any sense. That's political expedience, in my opinion. So reinstating Glass-Steagall would go into breaking up these big banks that are too big to fail. This idea that you can gamble with depositors' money. I'm pretty sure that if Hillary gets nominated, she would definitely go in and tear apart the Durbin Amendments. And a lot of, the regulation that we passed after 2008 would be out of there. Banks really want it out of there. And who does the banks have in their pockets? They have the Democrats, because in the 80s, as the unions were being destroyed, as I said earlier, the Democrats, or some of the Democrats, realized that their funding sources was going downhill. They needed more money to be able to compete with the Republicans, who were getting money from tobacco and oil and whatever else. The Democrats needed a clean industry to get their money from, so they turned to the banks. The bankers were, they were clean. Everybody likes banks. They like houses and loans and business loans. So Democrats turned to the banks. The bankers started to line their pockets, and we start to see lobbying become a lot worse of a problem. And speaking of lobbying, let's talk about Citizens United. Do you think that any of the other Democrats or the Republicans are going to do anything about our current voting system? No, they're not. but I'm getting a little ahead of myself because that's actually coming in the next video. So tune in for the next video for why you should vote for Bernie Sanders. If you're already out there voting for Bernie Sanders, then great, keep going. We're going to get him nominated. If you don't even know exactly who you want to vote for, just know that Bernie isn't owned by the corporations. This is a grassroots effort by progressives, by the base of the party, to put in somebody who we know will do the job, who we know will get the job done. And if you don't know who Bernie Sanders is, definitely watch this video and then go to the link in the bottom, click the link, find out more about Bernie Sanders, go to his website, and you'll be impressed because he's just an average guy. He's not a billionaire. He's not even a millionaire. He has like $300,000 in his bank account. So like and subscribe or whatever. I don't care.